Hey guys, so in fractions now, we have talked about adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions. What do you think we're doing next? Dividing fractions. What are you guys' thoughts on dividing fractions? How do you think they're going to be? Mason?
Actually pretty simple.
You think it'll be simple? How do you think you'll do it?
I think because you said division is fraction, we'll divide the denominator by the numerator.
Okay, so you remember that I say division, fractions are division, so you think they'll kind of have a common theme there that you're going to divide maybe the numerator and denominator?
I think it'll be more simple because multiplication and division like they're partners, and multiplication will be.
Nice. I like, you guys got lots of good ideas. So you think division will be simple because multiplication is simple, and multiplication and division are partners. I love that thinking. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in your math notebook, label it at the top. And we have a vocab word before we get started to add to our math notebook. And I might need to check spelling on this one. Let's see. Reciprocal. And I am going to double check on my spelling here. I am not confident. So if you're not sure, you look it up. Oh, I did not spell it right. I got some vowels here. All right, reciprocal. Look it up on your iPad and write a definition down in your math notebook. If you want, I would even type in math reciprocal. So then you get a math definition for this word. This word right here is going to be key in dividing fractions. So we have to have a clear understanding of it. One more minute. All right, raise your hand and tell me, what did you find? What is a reciprocal when we're talking about in math in dividing fractions? Brooklyn?
Describe something that's the same on both sides.
Describing something that's the same on both sides. Mimi?
A math reciprocal is simply defined as the inverse or a value or a number. For example, the reciprocal 9 is 1 divided by 9.
I like having that word inverse in the definition. Good word to have in there. When you're dividing by 1.
When
not necessarily which number is bigger. Bradley?
Bearing on or bending each of two parties equally.
So equally. All right, let's watch our math antics and let's see if we can learn some more about that word reciprocal, and then we're going to come back to it. Both lights, please.
Hi, and welcome to Math Antics. This video is all about dividing fractions. But in order to understand how dividing fractions works, we first need to learn about something called reciprocals.
Oh, there we go.
A reciprocal is just a fancy math term for what you get when you switch the top and bottom number.
Ladies and gentlemen, write that down for reciprocal right now. And I'm going to rewind that part so you can hear it again.
Hi, and welcome to Math Antics. This video is all about dividing fractions. But in order to understand how dividing fractions works, we first need to learn about something called reciprocals. A reciprocal is just a fancy math term for what you get when you switch the top and bottom numbers of a fraction. For example, if you have the fraction 1 over 2 and then switch the top and bottom numbers, you'll end up with 2 over 1. 2 over 1 is the reciprocal of 1 over 2. And 1 over 2 is the reciprocal of 2 over 1. And an interesting thing about reciprocals is multiplying a fraction by its own reciprocal will always give you 1. That's because you'll have the same multiplication problem on the top and bottom, so you'll end up with a whole fraction, which is always 1. Okay, that's nice. But what do reciprocals have to do with dividing fractions? Well, reciprocals let us do a really cool trick that makes dividing fractions easy. Whenever you have to divide something by a fraction, you can just multiply it by the reciprocal of that fraction instead, and you'll get the correct answer. And that's great news because multiplying fractions is so simple. This trick of multiplying by the reciprocal works because fractions are really just mini division problems. So when you multiply something by 1 over 2, it's the same as dividing by 2, since 2 is below the fraction's division line. And dividing by 2 is the same as dividing by 2 over 1, because you can turn any number into a fraction by just writing a 1 as the bottom number, right? But look, reciprocals. That's why multiplying by 1 over 2 is the same as dividing by 2 over 1. And it's true the other way around, too. So really, it's kind of like you never have to divide fractions. You can just rewrite your division problems so that you're multiplying by the reciprocal instead. Then when you multiply, you'll get the answer for the original division problem. As always, let's see a couple examples of how this works so you'll really understand. Let's try this problem. 3 over 4 divided by 2 over 7. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is rewrite our problem. Instead of dividing by 2 over 7, we can multiply by the reciprocal instead. The reciprocal of 2 over 7 is 7 over 2. So our problem becomes 3 over 4 times 7 over 2. Oh, I should mention a mistake that a lot of students make when they first learn to divide fractions. Sometimes students take the reciprocal of the first fraction, the one that's being divided, or even the reciprocal of both fractions. But you only want to take the reciprocal of the second fraction, the one you're dividing by. Okay, now that our problem has been changed to multiplication, it's easy. Just multiply the tops, 3 times 7 equals 21, and multiply the bottoms, 4 times 2 equals 8. And we have the answer to our fraction division problem. So 3 over 4 divided by 2 over 7 is 21 over 8. So that's pretty easy, but let's try one more example. Let's try 15 over 16 divided by 9 over 22. Again, the first thing we want to do is rewrite our problem. We'll change the divided by 9 over 22 into times 22 over 9. Now all we have to do is multiply. But since these numbers are kind of big, I'm going to use my calculator to help. Let's see here. So we have, all right. On the top, we have 15 times 22 equals 330. And on the bottom, we have 16 times 9 equals 144. So the answer to our division problem is 330 over 144. Of course, that could be simplified for your final answer on the test, but we cover simplifying fractions in another video. All right. That's how you divide fractions. You just multiply by the reciprocal and you have your answer.
Lights,
But
please.
there's one more thing I want to show you. You already know that the line between the top and bottom number of a fraction is just another form of the division symbol. Well, that means you'll sometimes see fraction division problems written like this. This shows the top fraction, 2 over 3, being divided by the bottom fraction, 4 over 5. It's really just that we have a...
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that you're ever going to be presented with fractions in this form. Okay, so they're showing like your fraction bars and then a big line meaning divide. I am not going to give it to you this way ever, and I don't think you're ever going to see it on a test or a quiz or anything this way, okay? But it is another option. Possibly in middle school you'll see it that way. All right. So reciprocal, like you said, when I say we're dividing fractions, I actually mean we're never dividing fractions. We're going to multiply, okay? So if we have the problem, in your math notebook, you need to have this. If I have the problem 3 divided by 1/2, I'm going to find the reciprocal always of this second number here, okay? Whatever number or fraction is in this place, I'm going to find the reciprocal. To find the reciprocal, then, I do what to it? Not multiply. I switch them. I flip them. So instead of 1 over 2, I put 2 over 1. And now instead of divide, I can put my multiply symbol. So my new problem, 3 times 2 over 1. And then I solve. So we are never going to actually divide fractions. We will find the reciprocal and then divide. Let's actually work some out. All right, here we go. Yes, Justice?
So when we times the whole number, do we change the whole number to a fraction, or do we just leave it?
Then you go ahead and solve like multiplication like we've done before, where you have to turn that whole number into a fraction and multiply across. All right, number 1. Number 1 is 2 divided by 1/2. Write it in your math notebook, not just sitting. Now, do I actually want to divide here? No, I'm going to find the reciprocal, which means I'm actually going to do 2. Instead of divide, I'm going to do multiply. And then I find the reciprocal. So what do I do to that fraction? I flip it. How do I make this whole number a fraction so I can multiply across? Put it over 1. 2 times 2 is?
4.
1 times 1 is? 1. When I divide, 4 divided by 1 to simplify here, my answer then is?
4.
Done. Not hard at all, is it? No. Number 2. All you have to remember is to find the reciprocal. 6 divided by 1/3. Am I going to divide? No. We are not going to divide. I want to find the reciprocal. So instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply. And what do I do here with that fraction? I flip it. How do I make that whole number a fraction? Put it over 1. And now I can multiply across. What's 6 times 3?
18.
1 times 1? And when I simplify, 18 divided by 1 is?
18.
Done. Let's find another one. It's easier than you thought? Yeah. Multiplying and dividing fractions is definitely more simple than adding and subtracting. All right, number 3. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. Let's do instead. All right. I am actually going to not divide. Who divides fractions? That's crazy. We're gonna do what? We're gonna multiply, and to multiply, I have to find the. So instead of dividing, I do multiplying, and I need to find the reciprocal here. But that whole number, it's not a fraction. It's a whole number. How do I flip it?
Put a 1 under it.
I turn it into a fraction. So it becomes over 1. So it's 2 over 1 now. Let me fix that. It just looks funny, doesn't it?
Yeah.
My 2 is so big.
1 is so small.
You know. So that whole number became 2 over 1. But now I need to flip it so it becomes 1 over 2. And now I can multiply across. What's 1 times 1? 5 times 2? Done.
110.
Let's roll over here. All right, one more together, and then I want you guys to practice some. Number 4. Divided by 5. Are we going to divide? No. We want to do what? We want to multiply. So I need to find the reciprocal. But this is a whole number here. How do I make that whole number into a fraction? Put a 1 under it. And now, to find the reciprocal, I do what to it? I flip-flop it. So this now becomes 1 over 5. What's 1 times 1?
1.
4 times 5? 20. Are we done? Is that simplified? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a mistake I want to show you that I fear that some friends will make. If I give you 1/3 divided by 7. My fear is that at some point somebody's going to go, ooh, well, I need to find the reciprocal of the fraction, and the fraction is right here. So I flip this one. Ladies and gentlemen, you will get it wrong every time. You always, always, always find the reciprocal of our second number, what we're dividing by. Okay? Always. There is no other option there. Do we got it? Yes. I want you to draw this in your math notebook right now. Arrows pointing. Which one are we going to find the reciprocal of?
7.
Cross this one off. Do it in your math notebook.
Oh, wait, do the problem in your math?
No, I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to make that little drawing right there. So you know which number you're always finding the reciprocal of. All right, number 5. I want you to practice 1/5 divided by 7. You solve it now. 1/5 divided by 7. I want you to turn to somebody in your area. Tell them what you got. If you guys disagree on answers, I want you to discuss it. All right, listening in 3, 2, 1, let's check it. I want to actually do what kind of computation? I want to multiply. So I find the reciprocal, but my number right here is a whole number. What do I do to it? Put it over 1. And now what does that reciprocal become? 1 over 7. Multiply across now. 1 times 1 is 1. 5 times 7 is 5. Is that simplified? Yes. Number 6 in your math notebook. You solve it. Check it. Instead of division, I want to do multiplication. I have that whole number there. What do I do with that whole number? Put it over 1. And then that reciprocal then becomes 1 over 3 because I flipped them. And now I can multiply across. 1 times 1 is 6 times 3 is? 18. Is that simplified?
Yes.
Yes, 1 1/18. With a partner in your area, staying in your seat, I want you to do number 7. Staying in your seat, turn to somebody in your area and do number 7 together. All right, listening in 3, 2, 1, let's check. Instead of dividing, I want to
Multiply.
To find the reciprocal, I do what here? Flip it. But to multiply, I've got this whole number. What do I do with this whole number? Put it over 1. Now I can multiply across. What's 4 times 8? 1 times 1?
1.
Am I done?
No.
I need to simplify. What is 32 divided by 1?
32. 32. Oh, I did it backwards.
And done. Ladies and gentlemen, if when you go to do your homework tonight, you're like, oh, hold on, that's off. We got this. All right, when you go to do your homework tonight, you're like, oh man, I can't remember how Mrs. Bush said to do that. I know I'm close, but I'm missing something. Then on Schoology, I have a chart for you. You should save it. It's a nice help sheet under math, and it's called dividing fractions chart. And this is going to tell you, no, I did not make this, how to divide fractions. And it gives us step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It says how we need to make a whole number into a fraction. We always keep that first fraction the same. We flip, we change that second fraction, we make the division sign into a multiplication sign, and then you solve. The only thing that I don't like that this chart does not have is it doesn't remind you at the end that you need to simplify, okay? So make sure you guys do that. Your homework for tonight is an I Know It math assignment on dividing fractions. There are 12 problems. Go ahead and get started.